10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
I think I'm missing something. Hello, folks, and welcome to Off the Cuff Paranormal. As you can see, my regular co-host is missing. We're not exactly sure what realm he went into. I think we lost him in a rabbit hole somewhere, but we know he's disappeared somewhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, I had to go hunting. I had to go hunting for another host. And although our regular host might show up at some point in time, we really don't know. We've got somebody special that came on board tonight. And, well, let's bring him on board right now. And, oops, hang on a second. And we'll introduce you. Hello.
Oh, hi there. How are you?
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ken Finn, he is part of Northern Paranormal Investigations, and he is really, him and his wife, case managers for us here at MPI, investigator, and heck, even you're getting into your a little more sensitive than usual than I've ever been used to recently, haven't you, Ken?
Well, yeah, because that one investigation that we can't speak of.
Hey, Ken, you might want to turn up your volume a bit. We can't hear you.
Oh, okay. I didn't want it too loud for you.
No, go ahead. Turn it up. Turn it up.
I turned it up. Is that
more?
Clear? That's full.
Okay. Are you okay? Well, anyway,
Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you, but you're quiet.
Well, that's my nature.
All right. Well, you'll just have to speak up a little bit. Anyway, go ahead. You were saying.
No, it's just Mr. Skeptic. Okay, and I still adhere to that, but there are things that happen that sort of make me believe that there might be some sort of a connection, certain ways. That last investigation we had, I had a connection with one of the ladies that was there to help out, and I took her aside and gave her some information.
That's true. I remember that. Hang on a second, Ken. Hey,
Sure.
do you have like a media level on your phone?
I'm on the iPad, and I've turned up the volume as much as it'll go.
No. Normally, there's a couple of volumes. One's like for media, and one is for volume.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen. I've just got the one.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll work
I'll
with
just
it.
speak a little louder.
We'll work with it. I got to turn down mine a little bit because I'm getting some squeaky sounds again on it. Sorry, folks. Technical issues with mine. I don't know what it is. Anyway, Kay says hello. Amy says hello, and I'm not sure who else is here today.
Hello.
But there's 3 people watching. So, we're sorry that Mike's not around for us. And Ken, thank you very much for stepping in, because this is a show that originally came about because you had actually suggested another show to us. And folks, just to let you know, in 2 weeks, Ken is going to be back with both me and Mike to discuss his other ideas. But it takes a lot more preparation for us to kind of get into that. If anybody else can hear squeaky sounds coming from me, please let me know. But it's a glitch. I don't know what it is. Anyway, tonight, actually, me and Mike originally wanted to talk about one particular subject, and that is reincarnation. Now, reincarnation. I guess the first thing I got to bring up a little bit about reincarnation, just so everybody kind of knows, okay? I got a bit of a premise for reincarnation, and let me just read it to you. You know, do you know what, first of all, does anybody know what the actual idea of reincarnation is? Ken, do you actually know what it is?
Well, I know I've done some reading on it because I didn't have a lot of notice, but I've done a little bit of reading, and it's basically the rebirth in new bodies or forms of life. In a
Okay.
very, very short, brief.
And yeah, and I don't Ken, where's your mic? Where, like, for your iPad? Is it on the front?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay. It just seems really quiet. That's all. We'll
Okay,
deal with
sorry.
it.
Can
No.
other people hear me? Can anybody watching? Amy, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Amy, Kay, can you actually hear Ken okay? Or is it just my phone? I need a thumbs up from somebody. And so far, I haven't got any thumbs up from anybody. They're probably writing comments now. They say that you're quiet.
Okay, well, there's not a whole lot I can do about that because I just have the one volume control on the iPad and it's at full.
Oh, okay. So Amy says I can hear Ken fine. I turned up. Oh, well, they turned up your volume. So anyway, guys, if somebody else can't hear them, let's turn up your volumes. I know I'll probably sound really loud. Ken will probably sound normal. But you're right. It is all about, I guess, a rebirth after death or something to that extent. It goes back to a lot of it from what I've read goes all the way back to the Asian cultures, right? The Asian cultures seem to believe in reincarnation more than Western cultures do. Whether it's Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, any of those from that neck of the woods seem to believe that they can be reincarnated. But what I've read recently kind of surprised me a little bit. It's just not the fact of reincarnating into another person. I mean, I found that it could be a bug, a snake, a lamb, a cow, a bird, anything really. But I have a little bit of a problem with that. I mean,
But is that life's lessons? Is that why it's chosen to be another form of life? Is there something that you have affected during your life that needs to be corrected, and that can only be through the eyes of another level of life?
well, that's a thought. I never really thought about that before. I mean, that absolutely could be. I mean, I really don't want to be the spider going eek and see the treads, right? I mean, I just, I would prefer not to be that way if that's what I need to learn.
Now, the one thing that you pointed out about it coming from mainly some of the reading I was doing, it was coming out of India, and it is part of their teaching. To, I guess, in their religions, that is part of their teaching. But in reading a little bit more, it's Greek, Roman, Aztec,
Yeah.
Viking, Druid. So I think probably the beginnings of it may have been out of the Indian culture, but it is actually quite widespread throughout the world.
True. That's very true. I mean, I read a little bit back on that, and And where was I here when I was looking at that stuff? Yeah, Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism. And I love this. India, they all hold in common a doctrine of karma, or karman, the law which states that what one does in this present life will have its effect in the next life. In Hinduism, the process of birth or rebirth, i.e., transmigration of souls, is endless until achieved moksha, or liberation, literally release from the process. It's achieved when one realizes that the internal core of the individual and the absolute reality are one. Thus, one can escape from the process and death and rebirth. Um, that was really interesting to read because I honestly I didn't even know originally that it really kind of had a basis in India, like you said, right? And oh, hey Sharon, how you doing? Good to see you. And what did Kay write? So hang on a second. Kay wrote, funny story, when my mom died, my sister pointed to a butterfly that had been around for a few days as we watched the cat. As we watched the cat ate it. Bye bye, mom again.
You often hear about, somebody will see a dove fly by or a crow, and they'll say that it's a heart. That is the loved one that is passed. That is them saying goodbye. So that's actually a common thing. Not so much the cat eating it, because then the if the cat's eating it, does that mean that the reincarnation is going to happen through the cat?
Uh, well, wouldn't that be a third reincarnation if the butterfly was already one reincarnation?
Who says there has to be a number? One question, and I was going to get into this later, but I have to say things before I forget them. Can you be reincarnated from somebody that's still living?
Well, I mean, the concept of reincarnation, though, Ken, is, or at least everything I've read, a person is past. So how could you be reincarnated from somebody that's alive?
A soul or an essence exists when somebody's alive.
Yes.
If there needs to be some repair work done, can it be started before a person leaves? I just wrote with that. No big discussion. That's just something that crossed my mind today. And I went, could that happen? Because I'll get into some stories a little bit later that tell you how some people are affected by reincarnation, or supposedly reincarnation.
Hmm.
Anyways, move on. Just a thought.
No, it's definitely it's interesting. Never thought about that. Stand by for 1 minute, okay, guys? I just got to check something really quick. I'll be right back. Sorry, I'm just okay. Sorry, guys. I just had to check something on here. Setting. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm a little on the wall with reincarnation as far as being something that you weren't already. I mean, if you're a human, my concept is you're born again as another human. Where other cultures, whether it be any of the ones that were mentioned, are saying that it could be anything. It could be, a bug, an ant, or whatever. I mean, I guess I could see the concept of being born something else to learn a lesson. I guess I could see that, but I'm almost wondering whether. I mean, I don't. I guess I have a hard time picturing a lesson learned from being a bird, but I guess you could.
But in a Buddhism religion, all life is precious. A spider, a fly, anything and everything. So how can you rank that if you're human? What, you're at a certain level and you don't deserve to go down or to go up? You will have to be a human?
Well, okay. That's true. That's true. Kay just said I think in Buddhism, the concept seems to be once you die, you reach nirvana, but only if during life you have reached karma, if I understood it correctly. That's the concept. Okay, like I mean, okay, so and I think I've explained this to Mike a long time ago, and I'll explain a little bit to Ken. When I have a philosophy, I guess that I work on, and that is that I believe that people are reincarnated as people again, or a version of a person. That's my belief. Um, but only again to the period of time that the soul or the essence of the person learns enough to, I guess, join the conglomerate of whatever's out there that people tap into as, or that people call God. Okay. So I don't believe in one individual that has all the power. That's something I don't believe on. But I think that if you have not reached that point, you're not going to be have the ability to meld with everything else up there, and I guess become part of that energy that allows people to tap into it. That could, in theory, create miracles, if you want to look at it that way. So if you haven't learned enough, you're reborn again to move forward. And I guess that's what they're saying basically in Buddhism, is the same concept, but it can be anything. So it's all about lessons is basically what it boils down to, if I'm reading that correctly.
That's what I get from the reading I've done.
Okay, so lessons. Okay.
We seldom get it right the first time through.
Okay, but is that us, or is that everything as a whole? Like, I mean, okay. So let's say you're born into a world that's really, really, really up. Okay, it's messed. And I mean, we're in a current state in the world, but it's not necessarily the greatest in the world right now, because we're on the brink of war, right? So is it the person's fault that he or she or it or whatever was born into this? Now, are they born into this time because they have a lesson to learn, or was that just a seven? Sorry, you're out you go, right?
And who does the picking and choosing?
Okay.
Does reincarnation happen to everyone?
Well, you see, apparently not. That's the thing. I mean, if you look at the concept, they have to reach nirvana, like Kay said. Then where do they go? Where do they go from there? Right. So here's what I'm wondering. So we do investigations, right? And we look for things. We communicate with what we deem to be spirits, correct?
That's right.
Are we communicating with spirits, or are we communicating with these souls that are in standby waiting to come back?
That's a tough one to answer, because I don't think anybody can truly answer that until you're in that position. There are some that move towards the light. Then there are some that are, like you say, they're in the waiting line. They're not fully processed yet. Yeah, or you can be attached to somebody to help them until the point that they can take care of themselves. Then you can yourself go towards the light, wherever that may take you.
Let me put what Cage just wrote. Those who achieve nirvana join God and merge their Atman. It's not Ant-Man, but it's Atman. Pure self in perfect communion with divine life. Okay.
I think she left the B off Atman. No. Sorry, Kate.
Well, I mean, that's very similar to what I said, Kay. I mean, you reach a point where you move on. What you move on to is really, we don't know. But it's, that's just kind of what I believe to a point, because as I said earlier, I don't necessarily believe in God. Right. Now there was somebody that wrote, and let me just read this to you, because this brings up the whole concept of, is reincarnation even, like, what are the reasons why? You know, and so this one person wrote, um, why do we believe in reincarnation? Okay. Is believing in reincarnation a reasonable way of finding meaning in life? There are probably several causes of people's interest in reincarnation, but at least two relate to the meaning of life. First, there seems to be a lot of injustice in the world. Many good people suffer while many evil people flourish. Very true. Existence will be better, less absurd, and more meaningful if after we die, good people are rewarded and the evil people punished. Now, are good people coming back rewarded, or are the evil people coming back on the earth being punished? There's a question. But okay, so second, the thought that in death we will completely perish and disappear makes many people feel that their lives are inconsequential and meaningless. They want to persist. Accounts of reincarnation, resurrection, and of heaven and hell may answer these concerns, but there are interesting philosophical debates on whether there are rational grounds to believe that these accounts are true.
It's interesting you say that. I think a lot of things. You have religion, you have spiritualism. I think a lot of people, man-made religion, man's I guess offerings towards religion, I think is plays to what you said, is that sometimes it's very difficult for people to accept the end, that there is no more. So they can build a situation where life doesn't end, and maybe this comforts them. I just throw that out there too. 33% of Americans, including 29% of Christians, believe in reincarnation.
That's really not a lot.
That's the
I mean,
state, I would say. And even though they say that the reincarnation sort of, the hub of it was in India, they're saying that 50% of the people in India believe. So it's not like everybody going, yeah, we're on the reincarnation train. So I think it's an interesting thing too, because it's taught. It's taught.
we're on our way.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I can see that it's an interesting belief, and I think that um, a lot of people, I agree with you, Ken. A lot of people want to believe that there's something after. I mean, for me, being what we do, we investigate and we try to communicate with spirits. I mean, I have to ask you, from that line of things, from that perspective that you've done now for how many years, um, you still have a question as to, or you still have a belief that reincarnation doesn't necessarily happen?
I would say I probably believe it doesn't happen. That's my own, but being a skeptic, having an open mind, otherwise, how could I do what we do if I was closed minded and said, no, there is nothing to anything? So you look at some of the information, the studies that have been done about reincarnation, thousands of studies. Now, scientists will probably tell you there is no such thing as reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been courses taught in schools, professors and investigators that have done thousands of research cases, which usually deals mainly with children in the beginning, because I guess, like we always say, children's minds haven't been totally destroyed by grown-ups yet, and that they're more open to things. And one of the things I read is that a lot of the reincarnation stories that are documented are told through the eyes of children that are between 2, 3, and by 6 and 7, those memories of their youth, their very young time, leaves them. In the time, I may be getting ahead of my time, maybe there's some or comments, but there's so interesting things about people that have been asked about reincarnation, whereas a child of 2 and 3 starts talking to the mother, says names, places, can tell you stories about being on a ship that sunk during the Second World War. Then when they do their study on it, they find that the name he gave actually belonged to somebody that was on that ship. And he has described what that person's sister looked like, parents looked like, house looked like at 2 and 3 years old. They're using language that a normal 2 and 3-year-old wouldn't use. It's almost like they're bursting to get this information out, and nobody's believing them. They're not being understood, so that at 6 and 7, a lot of these beliefs kind of slide off. And we also see that 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds are the ones that are also seeing the brown man on the ceiling. So I think that the child's mind, even though it is childlike, is so much more open than we are that have opinions that have been taught to us. Does that make sense? Or did I ramble? I rambled.
Okay, so Kay made 2 comments during that. She said, I would hate to be reincarnated. Imagine waking up again, going, oh crap, not again. She also said, is that reincarnation through a past life? Is there a difference?
I see. As in you yourself going on to somebody else. But how far back does your reincarnation start? Your process?
Well, that's a question for eternity. I mean, I know Kay actually went through some past regression at one point in time, not that long ago, and she had a very interesting experience. We'll have to get into that sometime with her. But that being said, I mean, I believe that everybody has past lives to an extent, but they're not you over and over and over again. They're a part of you. So my belief is that there might be like this one that you might have a dozen, 3 dozen, half dozen, 6, 2, 1, whatever before you, but that partial concept of what moved on also helped make you. It's not just your mother and father, but there's that little something extra that makes that person unique. Did that possibly come from a past life? Right, and that's what I'm wondering. That would also maybe give some credence to people that say, I've had past life regression and this is what I've got. This has been oh well, Mike will be joining us in a couple minutes, so there you go.
He got out of jail?
Oh. He got out of jail. He got out of jail free card. We'll be looking for you, Mike. We'll be looking for you. But that being said, I think that it's, as DCK is writing, a deja vu. Amy, welcome home from prison, Mike. I think that I don't know. I think that there's got to be something, because if people can go back, like you said, Ken, and be so absolutely accurate with what they're saying, whether it be kids and even some adults when they're putting into trances, how can you look at that and write off the possibility of reincarnation? I'm just asking.
Again, being a realist, I have to see it. So I can read about it, I can see a documentary about it, but I need somebody sitting across the table from me that can give me some proof.
Okay.
It's interesting to just piggyback on something that you said. There are studies done where somebody can say, I was shot down in a plane and this is an actual story from a study. I was shot down in the Second World War by Japanese. I was shot in, and a bullet entered my head. This child has a scar on the front and the back to coincide with the story they're saying. They have no reason to know this stuff. And wow, that's a tough one to say too, with internet and TV and stuff. People have, I guess, subliminal stuff being planted all the time. But these stories are coming back from the 40s and 50s before the media that we have now existed. So they will have scars that correlate to what they explained happened to somebody. That's interesting.
Yeah.
A prodigy, a music prodigy that can sit down at a piano and can play what they should not be able to play in the same style as a musician that died hundreds of years ago. Again, here I am saying I'm a skeptic, but I'm coming up with these examples of things that
to prove it.
But
All right,
I'd have to be sitting there talking to somebody. I read about these things, I get the tinglies, but I have to speak to somebody. Anybody can write something. That's in my mind.
okay, well, Ken, I'm going to put you on hold for just a second because I got a third party that wants to come in on this. So hang on.
I'm finished. Fine.
Hello, Mike. Welcome aboard. Yes, him.
Wait, no. Wait, what? I give up.
Look, it's a Kenny sandwich. I have somebody on the other side of me.
That's right. I can poke that way, and we can poke fun again. Mike, welcome aboard. Glad you can make it halfway through the show. It's fantastic. I hope the drive went safely and well and fast, apparently.
Yeah, I might have been speeding.
So we were talking about reincarnation here, Mike. And Ken was like, well, Ken, he came up with some really like interesting tales, mostly about like the people that experience stuff, like stories of events that happen, people's deaths, and yet you have somebody that knows nothing about it describing that and having evidence of the same wound, whether it be a birthmark or a mark on their head. One was like the story of a gentleman that was shot in a plane, right? You said during the war, Ken?
Yep, by Japanese, and just the I guess the clarity that he told the story, and the kid's like 3 years old. So he tells his story, they research it, and they find that this Japanese pilot existed. This person was on, this particular squadron, did die, and they start to piece it all together. So how's, somebody that's 3 or 4 year old going to know this?
So we were at the point where, although Ken, you really don't fully believe in reincarnation because, like you said, you have to have somebody in front of you to give you proof of that. At the same token, Mike, I mean, now that you're on board with us, where do you stand with all this? I mean,
I would have to be with Ken on that. I would like to have the proof first. I've read and seen things too. Maybe not that story that you just shared, but I've seen one about a young child that basically described everything that happened at 9/11 without even knowing what 9/11 was. This child said that they were in a large building in a large city that looked like kind of like New York, and there was a big explosion, and I died. And it's just like they were like, how could you know about that? You weren't alive then, right? So similar sort of thing, right? Where the facts all lined up, but there's no way that someone that age could know anything about that.
True. So, okay, so I'm gonna throw some questions at you guys, okay?
Sure.
And just this is partially tied to the reincarnation and partially not. I guess everything has its connections here, okay? So if people are reincarnated, let's just say it happens, okay? Theoretically, it happens. if you're reincarnated and your past life, you died in a particular place, okay, like a particular location, historic location, like our future talk, whether it be a hotel, a castle, something rather very unique, okay, or maybe like you said, like a very tragic accident or place like that. If you are born again or reincarnated into something else or another human being or something like that, do you think it's plausible that you're destined to end up at that place again? Do you think people actually experience draws to locations like this because of that?
That sort of takes me to your discussions on parallel universes.
I'm out here.
But as soon as you started talking about that, deja vu, I thought that's where you were going to go. Do you avoid where you died? Do you feel drawn to where you died? That's an interesting question.
Mike?
I've always felt like you're kind of drawn to it. People have this sometimes a desire to want to go somewhere they've never been, and they have no reason to be wanting to go there. But is that because that's where you once lived? Who knows? But it is an interesting theory.
Amy just posted there's a documentary on YouTube of a little boy talking about a mom, sister, dog, a house by water where planes land, etc. But they researched, they found the family and house and took the kid there. That's interesting. Okay, so let's just change that up a little bit then. If, let's just say, a person passes away, they're in the queue. Okay, somebody up there went, "You're in the queue to come back, but you're in a queue." Or maybe you're not in the queue. Maybe they don't put you in the queue because you've done something and they're just not ready to do that yet. Do you think, well, this person might be waiting, or for whatever reason they're in this limbo area, whatever, that they're destined to inhabit, haunt, shall we say, a very particular location, like where they died?
I think that is possible and kind of plays into what our hobby is. But in some of the things we discussed already about children feeling something, a situation that happened, it could be another country they've never been to, not even in Canada, the States, it's in Japan, it's in the Pacific, wherever. So yes and no.
Okay. Mike?
Well, that's a really Switzerland answer of you, isn't it? Yes and no. How about?
I thought that was pretty good.
No, that's a really good answer. I can't come up with one better than that.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this. If we go with the concept that reincarnation exists, let's just say the possibility of it there exists. If you're not reincarnated and you're either stuck in limbo somewhere or you go off to this, whatever the case may be, does this mean that after death, we no longer have a choice?
I like to think that we do have a choice, but I mean the thought of not having any more free will and free choice and anything like that's a little bit scary, right? Like your decisions are now made for you by something else. I don't know. I don't like that.
You're speaking religion here. Oh, sorry.
I didn't say nothing about religion.
Okay, but hold on. You're assuming though that after we pass, choices are really relevant anymore.
what's to say that anything after we pass changes at all?
Good question. So Karen said, I've often wondered how one gets picked to be reincarnated. That's one question. Anybody want to touch on that?
Well, as we sort of said in the beginning of this, it's a process. You keep going through it until you get it right. And
There you go.
then, and it's interesting because you say they choose you, they do this. So who's they? Anyways,
Aliens.
that's another show. That's another show.
Aliens.
Okay. So Amy wrote, Karen watching many documentaries on this subject. A reoccurring theme is that when we die, we go through a life review, and what we didn't learn, we come back to try again. It's our own choice. Yeah, and we've said that. We've said that already a couple of times in different ways, actually. All right, so let's move along to.
I just have to throw in about it being choice. Would you choose to come back and go through hell again? You know, like I don't know if reincarnation does in fact exist. I don't know how much control you have over it. Because if you have not had a successful, enriching life that you hope to have, and you have to come back and try again, unless you don't remember that, but you do, because we've already talked about certain cases where some people actually can remember their past life.
Some people seem to, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they seem to.
So I don't know how much. I don't think you have a lot of choice. Can you stop the process?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know if you can actually stop the process or not. I mean, Kay said, I think, well, where to go? Hang on a second. Kay said, I think we just have to die and wait and see. If I get asked to do I want to go on or go back, I'm going on. I don't think it's a matter of a choice, Kay. I agree with Ken on that one. I don't believe it is a matter of a choice.
How many times I don't know about you two, but if you have you ever asked someone that you know was going to die, like say a parent or whatever, and say, "Hey, I know you're going to die. Now, if you're reincarnated, can you come back and find me?" Right? Like, give me some proof, give me a sign, do something. That's when some people are like, "Well, it's like you're walking down the street and you see someone that looks like your father from behind, and it's just like it's not him, but all of a sudden he's gone in a crowd. Was that a sign that yes, I am indeed back, but I can't interact with you?"
Okay. So I got this note. Ken will know who wrote this. I think that certain people in one's life or in a past life might still have stuff to work out together and might reincarnate in different relationships next time around. Interesting concept. Kay wrote, I had a regression and told the hypnotist, while under that, I wasn't going to tell her. She said, what? She said she had never had that before. Oh.
That I wasn't going to tell her. Tell her what?
Yeah, tell her what?
Well, that's what I think I remember this. She was asking a bunch of questions of Kay or whoever she was in a past life. And apparently the response was, I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.
Right. So, oh, yes. And Amy said, hi, Holly. Okay. So, okay. So here's another. Here's,
I'll just throw this out there. Sorry to interrupt. I'm new at this. So you can be male, come back as a female. You might come back as, if you were from what Holly was saying, if you're in a relationship and still have things to work out, you might come back in a different. Yeah. Your wife might come back as your mother. It's like things might be changed around for a different point of view to help learn the lesson. I keep going back to that.
Well, I kind of like what Holly wrote. I mean, if you're in a everybody has relationships, so if you haven't finished something in a relationship, maybe you come back to finish that. Again, maybe that's another option out there too. That's another idea. So let me ask you this though: what is the possibility? Okay, are we bound to repeat life no matter what? Like, let's just say, due to a glitch in the matrix, shall we say, we're bound to repeat it. We just don't remember, or not often, not always. So it doesn't matter. You're coming back, whether you like it or not. Now, if you're working along the concept, there is no glowing ball up there or something that you can go to, then you're stuck coming back.
So that goes back to the previous question about having choice. There is no choice.
In
Exactly.
that case, there would be no choice. Kind of interesting though, but like how does that happen, right? Like how does reincarnation happen? All of a sudden you're reincarnated as like right now you're a Caucasian male, you come back as a Asian female. Like how right? Like what's the process here? How is that all determined?
Better watch it. You might come back as a chihuahua, Mike.
Well, and that's the other question. Like, if reincarnation, if we just assume we're going to come back as a human, what's to say we don't come back as a dog or as a cat or as a frog, right? Like,
Well, okay, so we touched on that earlier in the India side of things, and Buddhism side of things, that they believe that you can be reincarnated as anything. It's all about learning lessons. Now, Holly also wrote. Now, here's a twisted one. Holly also wrote, I have been told that my daughter was once my mother. The possibility of that did not surprise me. I think I would probably, I don't know. What would I do if my daughter said, I used to be your mother? No, you didn't. Get lost. No, but I mean, honestly, it's a weird concept to think that it could be like that, right?
that's not a foreign thought because, like, my father-in-law passed away before my daughter was born, and she does so many things like he does. It's just like we almost say, "Okay, Pierre," like because it's just so uncanny. Like, how could she have so many mannerisms like him without even meeting him? I mean, there is bloodline, but then there's just next level stuff. That's just like, a mannerism that he did. That's like, you wouldn't know that he did that. How do you do that? Right?
Yeah.
Is that possible? For sure. I think it could be, but I don't know.
That opens the door, as you say, for mannerisms, for accent, for ability to speak other languages that nobody else in the family's got, but this person you can relate to as being reincarnated from could do all these things, and you can. So yeah, to what you're saying, mannerisms and stuff like that is, well, I think part of that too is genetics, to a
Yes.
certain.
To a certain point. But if there's like a certain thing, like something someone did that was like, they would always like tap their fork 3 times before eating. I don't know. I'm just making something up, but something like that where it couldn't necessarily be genetics. It's just something that person did that was kind of
Yeah.
quirky. And then all of a sudden you look over and you see your kid doing it. And it's just like, how did you know to do that? Right? That's kind of weird. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
But if it's in your family, you can kind of see it. But if it's someone halfway around the world, and all of a sudden they sit there tapping on their fork 3 times, that no one's going to know what the hell they're doing. They're going to be like, "Why'd you do that?" I don't know.
All right. Well, let me throw this one at you. Now I'm gonna bury you in another rabbit hole here. If we go with the concept that people are reincarnated or can be, okay. Where do you stand then on our lives as we know them to be predetermined or predestined?
So like when somebody dies at 2 years old, there's a reason other than they died. So
Yes.
that was determined.
Yeah. I mean, if you go along the concept that there's a lesson to be learned, maybe that lesson to die that young had to be learned from a very innocent perspective. right? So everybody's life is all our lives predetermined. And that way, because if it would make sense if you follow the suit that if it's predetermined, you go from here to here, you're gone. But then, okay, is that as far as you could get in this body at this state, in this kind of person who you are right now, to learn the lesson you had to learn? Your lesson is gone, you're done, you're finished. Time to move on and get the next incarnation going so you can learn the next lesson in the line.
I think it can work twofold. So the person that was reincarnated to be this child that died at 2 years old, say, that's their life lesson or whatever, their journey. That's their thing to experience. But it's also the people that are still living to have to endure that kind of pain and suffering.
Yes.
Right? So it's kind of like all symbiotic sort of stuff, right? So
Exactly.
it not only affects the person that died, but also the people that that person knew. They all have to experience that pain and suffering as well.
True.
So
Amy,
I do believe that everything happens for a reason. I'm a strong believer in that.
okay. Ken?
Something just crossed my mind. It's a little different. So in the beginning of what we are now, our sort of stage of evolution, there was hundreds of thousands, 1 million, 2 million people on the earth. And now there's billions of people on the earth. If people are in fact being reincarnated, there's more bodies than there was people in the beginning. So if they're being reincarnated, and I've read somewhere that reincarnation can actually happen multiple times at once.
Okay.
So you're saying you could be reincarnated into two different people?
Or more. That's, again, just some stuff I've read. Reincarnation doesn't have to be a one-on-one thing.
It's almost like doppelgangers.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Amy wrote this. She goes, hold on. Maybe we are reincarnated to help others. Like if a child died young, maybe that child was here to teach their parent how to handle grief better than some better or something of the sorts.
Yeah.
Kay wrote, if life is predetermined, why do we bother to put a seatbelt on? Because that's the law, Kay. It's the law.
Yeah.
But at one time, it wasn't the law, and people got hurt.
That's true. But then again, Ken, you said there's a lot more people than what there were before. Okay, but then again, in the wars, how many people died? Did they all reincarnate or did they not? Or are they all starting to come in now?
At what point did the reincarnation start? How many people were there? Because if there's 10 people and they die and they get reincarnated, there's 10 people that have been reincarnated into another body. So
Not.
you have billions of people.
Yep.
Where did everybody come from that's being
Oh,
reincarnated?
there's yeah, okay, but now you're going to say, okay, is everybody reincarnated or are new births just reincarnations or only some births reincarnations? But you just said people can be reincarnated into multiple beings.
I know.
Then you have 10 the first time around, you have 20 the second time around, you have 40 and so on and so on and so on. Right? And then every time they reincarnate, it's somebody different, somebody new, multiple news. I mean, okay, aliens. But again, it's some of that stuff. So, folks, okay, listen, it's getting on close to the end of the show, and I know, Mike, you only managed to get in about 30 minutes here, but you know what? Ken, give us your last thoughts on reincarnation, please.
It was interesting that you sort of threw that at me tonight. Could I join you? And I thought, yeah, sure, why not? And then I said to Holly, I said, reincarnation, I don't believe in it. So what am I going to talk about? And then as you do a little bit of reading and a little bit of discussion, there's a lot to be talked about. There's a lot to learn. Interesting. So I've learned something from being in this. which leads me to actually want to look at it a little bit more.
Cool. And Mike.
Well, I'm late to the party. Yeah, it's like I'm not a firm believer in it. But like you said, Ken, once when you have an intelligent discussion about it, I kudos to you. You guys are intelligent. Um, it does open your mind to ideas, possibilities, right? You're kind of like, wow, I never thought about that. I think that's the great thing about this show that we do is it does open your mind to other ideas that you maybe never thought possible before. Um, is it going to change my perspective on it? Probably not, but I'm still open to it. As a paranormal investigator, you're open to all ideas, right? So it's interesting. It's an interesting idea. Uh, I just want more proof.
Oh, ditto.
From my perspective, I think it's a good possibility. It exists. I don't think it's everybody. I think there's new births. I think there's deaths, and they don't come back. But I think there is a reason why some people might be reincarnated, and I think it's a good bet that it does happen, and it could explain a lot. That being said, again, I stand where Ken does. Prove it to me. Now I've seen enough to think about it, and I have to agree, Ken. I mean, it does a lot of these conversations, and even all the shows I've done with Mike, it does bring up a lot of uh, wants to actually look a little bit farther and see what else is out there. And we've done tons of shows, Mike. But I would have to say, and I love having when I get a chance to either sit down and talk with you, Ken, or have you on like you were tonight, and you're going to be a special guest for us again. It's there's see, he can do it, Ken can't. But there's a very, I can say this, Ken, you have a very unique perspective and outlook on a lot of different things. And you always prompt me to go, I never thought of that. Or I never thought of something like that. So it's always a learning curve with you, sir. And guys, Amy just said, awesome show, guys. It is one of my favorite topics, a pleasant surprise topic for the show. Cases agreed. Great show, thought provoking. For everybody watching, thank you so much for joining us on Off the Cuff Paranormal. Ken, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks, won't we?
You were right. You said it would go by quick.
It
went really quick.
And
It
it
really
went
does,
by
doesn't
very,
it?
very quick. That's right. It does. And when you come back, we'll be talking about a whole different subject, which, well, I'm not going to say a damn thing about, but I think the concept of it went up, and hopefully people will forget about it. We'll have some very interesting things to talk about on that show. In the meantime, thank you again for being a part of Off the Cuff. Mike, as always, it's been a pleasure, and it's great that you managed to catch up with us 30 minutes into the show. That was awesome. And for everybody else, well, there's only about a minute and a half left of the show. So, Amy, it was great to see you on here, Ken. I look forward to seeing you again on here. Thespian 2, au revoir. Bye, Holly. Have a great weekend. Good to see you. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Ken, have yourself a wonderful night. From myself, Mike, and Ken. Good night, guys.
Hey, everybody.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye, guys.